We'll open the room for presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, give me a minute. I gotta shuffle things around here. I'm on the laptop, so the big computer. Okay, here we go. All right, any questions, suggestions, ideas, thoughts, agreements, disagreements? It is prophecy, you know, you can disagree.
I think Sandra is trying to unmute herself.
No, I just noticed that it was unmuted. I don't know how that happened.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Willard.
Yes, sir. I found tonight's presentation extremely interesting. I have not yet digested it all. I'll have to listen to the YouTube presentation. Very, very interesting. And I thank you for Tagore, and I want you to know it's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all. Yeah.
You're welcome, Willard. God willing, I would start sometime the Olivet Prophecy as one of the series under Prophecy Insights. At that time, I would explore bottom layers and intermediate layers and top layers. Simultaneously, we comb through multi-layers with those 100 verses. Today, I wanted to make a beginning so that you are seeing some glimpses of other layers. But thank you for your comment.
Any other comments? Alan.
Yeah, going back to Jeremiah 50, verse 24. Something that we see is this been common throughout human history, and that is contending against the Lord. At the end of verse 24, we see that phrase, you have been found and also caught because you have contended against the Lord. That's the New King James. You have there because thou hast striven. But isn't that what men have done from the beginning? It's as if throughout human history, men have always contended and striven against the Lord, starting with Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, until Noah had to build the ark to save 8 souls.
Yeah.
And even then, after Noah, men have always strove against the Lord. And you and I, we have personally striven and strove against the Lord. We are guilty of that also, both before our conversion and after our conversion. Because we are having the internal battles that Romans 7 talks about. We are still continuing, even in our Christian walk, to have these strivings within ourselves, to have to do continuous battles and fighting internally against the pulls of the flesh. Until this crescendo of sorts. It's as if this time of the very end that you come to in the Olivet Prophecy and here, and in so many other prophets, such as Joel and Revelation and so many others, it's as if this striving, this contending crescendos at the end of the age, and humankind has leadership that rises to the top and is completely wicked and anti-Christ in its viewpoints. and in its actions. So I think this is kind of what we find when Babylon is judged. It is because of this crescendo of striving against the Lord, which we continue to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. But there's a fundamental difference between us and Babylon. We do not reject the authority of true Shem. We stick with authority of God, and we do our best to be under his authority and
Yep.
God. But the Babylonians, to begin with, let us make a name for ourselves, a Shem for themselves. So they have no chance of coming under the authority of true Shem. So they're in open, continual rebellion, and they would be caught definitely. But for us, if we are not careful, we go into habitual because of the flesh nature within us.
Yeah.
We would be striving against our God, as you have mentioned. That is real, but as long as we desire and we want to be under God's authority, we want to obey, and this is fine line. People pray regularly and study their Bibles and kind of plead with God, help us with our various weaknesses, help us with my sins, habitual sins, which I'm not able to get rid of. I need your mercy. I need your patience. I need your strength to overcome them. But help me, surround me with your mercies. That kind of approach is so well pleasing to God. Even though you are not worthy, the trick is he will count you worthy because of these things, that are small baby steps that you are doing all through, without neglecting your prayers, neglecting your Bible studies, strengthening your faith internally, obedience. So those small baby steps is sometimes enough to please God, to count you worthy to escape all these things.
Yeah.
In some ways, he's easy to work with, our God. But if you are not giving up that pride, that indifference, that laziness, whatever prevents you from praying regular basis, prevent you from studying your Bible and doing basics, I think it's hard to please him. Then probably will let you go into persecution, but still you would make it into the kingdom eventually. But you can also lose out, who knows? So you're right, but I have another point to mention, Alan, because you have raised a very important subject. We strive with God also in terms of wrestling with him. He is holy God. We are not yet. So we wrestle. Just like Jacob wrestled with God. After wrestling, his name is changed to Israel. So maybe perhaps this is a righteous wrestling with God, because he is righteous, but we are unrighteous. But we wrestle with a goal or intent to become like him. So the direction of our wrestling with God is positive, while Babylonians' wrestling is negative. It is striving against Lord, but we are striving for Lord to be in right standing with him, yet wrestling like Jacob wrestled with God, and he became Israel from Jacob. So we would be somewhat become Israel as we wrestle for righteousness. That's my 2 cents. We will go for any other comments.
Any of your thoughts, ideas, comments? Marlene?
You wonder if that ties in with when Jacob's name was changed to Israel, doing things for his name's sake. ties in with that. I appreciated your explanation on that. Being persecuted for his name's sake. I've not understood that until you explained that tonight about the Shem and that connection with it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, Marlene, like there are so many verses he indirectly refers to Babylon. Initially, if you have not studied these chapters, Jeremiah, Isaiah, the Babylonian chapters, you wouldn't think that he's talking about Babylon. But eventually I want to come to 4 Gospels and evaluate the words of Christ that he references to Babylon. There are surprisingly many places he alludes to Babylon. So this is one of the places I think is referring to Babylon, my namesake. So you have not rejected his name. He is true Shem, while Babylonians rejected his name, his authority, and went about the authority of their pastor, minister, church, fundamental doctrines. The list is endless, alternatives. Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it.
Gayleen?
Hi. Thank you, Tigor, for the research on Revelations. And you were talking about the signs in the heavens. And there is in the US now, as you have mentioned, the eclipse of the sun, solar eclipse. And they have a lot of issues or talks about it. What for me is fascinating when I hear about them is like in the constellation now there's a whale. They say there's a whale star right somewhere that can be seen, and then the eclipse, the solar eclipse will pass through several towns in the US named Nineveh.
Yeah.
And then there's another guy. So these are different people I listen to and see what they have in common or what they have different or something unique to say. And one of them even went to the time of Jonah's event, the real event, and he's saying through NASA they found a calendar that on that day that Jonah came there, and there was a solar eclipse that happened. That's why they believe. One of the reasons they believe. So, and I'm not sure if this Purim there was a blood moon. I'm not sure if there was a blood moon in Jerusalem this or in Israel this Purim season. So with those signs, even before this, like there were 3 blood moons and it was a big deal. So there are signs the Lord is saying, but I think the people now are the heart is hard and they are not as easily spooked. Unlike before, if something like that happens, everyone's going, okay, there's something going to happen. Even if it's a wrong meaning, like for the Maya Empire and other empires, something, we believe something's happening. God is saying something. But nowadays, oh, okay, that's a solar eclipse. Let's just watch. And that's the hardening of the heart, I think, that it just becomes not a warning, but just an event. And we forget what the Lord's warning is. So that's the sad part nowadays. If people are just going to look at it as an event and not what as a sign from the Lord. So thank you.
Welcome. I think Marlene pasted something in the chat, those town names. I think Willard also sent his weekly text. He sent the similar article on that. And I don't know the prophetic significance of it. I haven't researched. Somebody asked me of my opinion on this, so I will do some basic study on verses that they are quoting, and I will give my 2 cents maybe next week. The blood moons and these eclipses, Jews are very interested. They're just obsessed and fascinated with that. I don't know the reason, but in scriptures, you see the signs that he mentioned, sun, moon, and stars, and the fearful sights and terrible things that you would see. Sights, that means sight, you would see with visuals. And then signs also, there are 2 different things he mentions. And those likely to be not normal events. You can't dismiss them as a regular normal event because their hearts would fail when they see that. Those are terrifying signs. You can't keep quiet, you can't ignore. As if an asteroid is going to fall on you, something like that. They're very terrifying. And all the normal cycle of events would be disturbed. I know in Noahic covenant, God assured that summer and winter, day and night, will not cease. They will continue. He promised under Noahic covenant. So that basic patterns would not be disturbed. But the day portion can be reduced, night portion can be reduced, the winter can be compressed, summer can be expanded. So those things can change. And the regular heavenly things, sun, moon, stars, and the heavenly bodies can also be disturbed in such a great extent. And that you will not be able to ignore because you would be affected. So those are terrifying, dreadful times, I believe. So is this current eclipse has some prophetic significance? I don't know. If you have any insight, please do share.
I have
Can
my opinions that, sorry about that. I was muted. I think like you were saying, the prophetic events are not going to be scheduled. I mean, you can predict an eclipse very easily. I mean, if you have the right math, the path, everything that's going together. It's a big clock up there. It's all moving at a certain rate. You know, just like the sun, we know how long it takes for the earth to go around the sun. We know how long it takes for the moon to go around the earth. It's calculated. The stuff that's going to be terrifying in the Bible, or the signs, are going to be something that's not scheduled, something that just kind of happens. At least that's my opinion on things. Now, An example of this would be for many, many years in the 70s and the 80s, they talked about Planet X. It's going out and it's coming back and it races past the Earth and it goes here and it goes there. And they recently have identified Planet X on a pass-by. It was actually the the final stage of one of the Saturn rockets that left its orbit. It was supposed to go into the sun. Instead, it swung around the moon wrong, and it's now in this weird elliptical pattern across the Earth. I mean, things happen, and we can get excited about stuff. You know, we have to look at everything through the eye of Scripture, have to calmly be, you know, not jump to conclusions. Just weigh all the information and like Tagore was saying, look at it from a biblical perspective. So I've said my piece. Gayleen?
Yeah. I just want to go review the day the Lord Jesus was crucified. It was said there that there was I think an eclipse, and then the solar eclipse plus an earthquake, which was like a double for them. Of course, they didn't know, like we know, that there will be calculated that that day there will be an eclipse. If that happened now, we would know there would be an eclipse on such a day. But the earthquake was not. You can't predict. You can sort of know there will be an earthquake, but not that particular day. So we know something's going to happen when there's an eclipse and there's an earthquake and something else is happening all at once. So that's really the horror for some who will not be ready. So thank you.
Marlene?
Actually, Tom,
Tom?
Tagore, when you were talking earlier, you had mentioned a day not being 24 hours, but rather 8 hours of light and 8 hours of darkness. Where did you? I wasn't following you right there. Where did you say that was? And what did you base that on?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'm glad that you asked this question. There's another prophecy that sun, a third of the sun will not shine, and a third of moon will not give light. A third of the stars would not shine. So a third, that can be interpreted by different possibilities. That means a sun is a disk, like full circle. A third of it can be cut off, would not give the light. That is one interpretation. Second thing is sun represents the day, moon represents night in a broader scheme of prophecy. Genesis 1st chapter, we have sun to rule the day and the moon and stars for the night. They were given to rule or define the night. So if sun, 1/3 of the sun is not shining, it can be broadly understood also as 24 hours day is reduced. So assuming 12 hours day and 12 hours night, a third of it is gone. So out of 12, it is 2 plus 2, somewhat 8 hours. Somebody computed. So 8 hours day and 8 hours night. So it's no longer 24 hours day because the Earth is knocked out of its orbit by some planetary collisions, or some planet rubs its way closer to Earth and Earth trips off its orbit. There are several scenarios they worked out, and this is one of the interesting things that I found. I thought I would mention that. Yeah, that's it. I mean, is it? Yeah, but as you mentioned in the past, Tom, when they come even remotely close, they tend to discharge lots of electricity, lots of charge into Earth's atmosphere. That will create devastation. All your electricity is gone. Now we would go to Middle Ages. So that scenario actually Revelation tells us.
That's
Some of-
interesting. That actually you also have a magnetic pull as planets come near each other.
yeah.
They have their own magnetism, and in such, it would cause it to go out of the orbit. So that's
Louder.
So in most of the ancient times, Mars believed to be coming close to Earth every n number of years, some 100 years or 150 years. It would come real close to Earth, unleashing terror. There will be lots of lightning, discharge of electricity, and many people would die. Sometimes the villages and villages would be electrocuted. So they started fearing this god called Mars, and they used to offer sacrifices. And the ancients were terrorized by Mars. And there were several scientific evidences for this. And somehow there happened some cosmic event where the Mars was pushed out of its orbit, where it is no longer coming close to Earth. That's another theory. And it might come back to its original path, or some other planet might come closer to Earth, or some other big asteroid, or whatever, like you have other comets. They might come closer and discharge electricity or push the Earth out of orbit. These are all very real possible scenarios. There are some biblical scholars or students I know of, they are fully focused on this cosmic theology, cosmic events. They study history, they study future also in the light of the prophecies that God gave us. So that's an exciting field, actually. Not much in COGs, but those Protestants, those Roman religion people, they do it.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Makes sense.
A cosmic event moving the earth. There would be no one alive. There's been numerous videos I've seen, and people who are into people from NASA who figured this stuff out, that if the Earth were to move, I forgot how many thousands of miles out of its orbit, to do what you're talking about of 8 hours a day and 8 hours a night, that you'd have to be somewhere in the vicinity of the orbit inside Venus. Because Venus, I think, has a 9 and 9. So you'd have to be inside the orbit of Venus, and the heat from the sun would burn everything. There'd be no one left alive at all. Nothing. Our atmosphere can't handle that kind of heat.
Yeah, you
And
have
moving, there's so much wrong with that. It'd be total and complete devastation of everything on Earth. Nothing would survive.
Let me give you a couple of verses. The sun scorched men with boils, excessive heat.
Mhm.
And men blasphemed God for these plagues. That's one verse. The second verse, I think, it is in Isaiah. The earth reeled to and fro like a drunken man. What do you think about that verse? There are verses, these are not like just imaginations. They're imagining, no doubt, a little bit, but they're basing their thought on a clear-cut verse in Bible. So if it is not 8 hours, maybe it's 9 hours, like maybe is less than 12 hours. Who knows how these things would play out?
But
But
the
you are
whole-
right. You can't be at the place of Venus. You will be toast.
There's so many other ways though that the Earth could be burnt like that. Our ionosphere is designed to protect us from certain types of flares, solar flares. I think it's negatively charged solar flares.
Yeah.
If a positively charged solar flare hits our ionosphere, and I may have it backwards, but if the wrong flare hits our ionosphere, it goes right through. There is no protection. It goes right through. So everything gets burnt, not totally cooked, but burnt. You'd get boils, you'd get burns, the electrical system would literally get blown to pieces. We would be in the dark. And as for the Earth reeling to and fro, well, there's all sorts of predictions of asteroids either coming close or striking. Something strikes the Earth, that's not enough to knock it out of its orbit, but definitely to make it wobble. There's also theories that the moon would get hit. See, the Earth wobbles, I think it's 1.3% of its size. And the only thing that's preventing it from going greater than that is the moon. So if the moon gets taken out, well, yeah, the moon's not gonna give its light anymore because it ain't there. It's gone. And we won't have that counterbalance anymore. So the Earth will wobble and it may go out of orbit. There's so many ways that there's so many ways to destroy the Earth.
We are in a delicate balance. It's easy to knock it off that balance, and
Mhm.
your stock market would be no more. That would be history. All your banking system would be history. So you would be forced to Middle Ages. In
Right.
just a fraction of a second, it's a boom. So it's such a delicate balance. And some of the things that God mentions in Revelation and in Isaiah, those are frightening and no man can ignore.
No,
All the atheists, all the unbelievers, all the LGBTQ, they will be terrified. Their hearts fail. And the men would fold their hands, become like women, weeping and crying. Their hearts fail. The language is like unmistakable. The clear language God uses in Revelation and other prophecies. It's just fascinating. We have to study in context and multi-layers. But this is all prophesied to happen before the second coming.
right, but Christ has to have something to come back to. Because it does talk about those that make their robes white in the tribulation, those who are left beyond the nations. You know, it has to be a catastrophic event, but it can't be so bad that it wipes out everything. There's got to be something left. Because I
It
mean,
was-
Revelation makes it clear there's something left that
Oh, there was
Christ
obvious-
returns to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely there will be people left. So it's not a total toast, but it's a near toast in the sense people have boils and they have hail this big, a weight of talent. Talent is like tons kind of thing. That
Mhm.
big hail would fall and men would be blaspheming God, whoever caused this. There are lots of things. Sometimes it is symbolic, but if you take it on its face value, there are terrifying things that would happen. People cannot ignore,
Oh, yeah.
dismiss them as normal events. They are not abnormal events.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I agree, like people would be left and people would be made white through great tribulation. But there is also a verse, like unless the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh would be saved.
Alive. Yeah.
So all flesh would be toast if he doesn't intervene. So is it man-made? Are these guys crazy in doing something? I heard NASA was secretly planning to explode a hydrogen bomb on Mars and see its effects. So if some crazy thing they do and the planetary collision is set in, the balance is disturbed, then you have havoc, chaos.
Mhm.
Now that you can't control, you can't blast another hydrogen bomb to stop it because you don't know the dynamics. If you do that, you will do more damage to the balance.
Mhm.
So I think it goes out of hand somehow, and God has to cut short those days. Otherwise, no flesh be saved alive if you take it on its face value.
Right. Jaylene?
I've been following sort of like he's a prophet, or at least he has dreams. And this is Tom Horn. I don't know if you have heard of him. And he's very much he was given the about the Pope, the other Pope, not the Pope now, and how and the day he quit being a Pope. And it was to the day and to the whatever that was given, it did happen. So now that he has another dream or a warning, and his is the wormwood, the name of the comet. So there, that what you're saying is there could be an imbalance on the earth, and it could be a comet. And it reminded me of the statue of the Babylon statue in Daniel, that there is this stone that came from nowhere and hit everything. I know the stone can symbolize or symbolizes Christ, but it could also be something really a comet that hits the world and it destabilizes everything. So, and then about the ships, a third of it is gone. And I'm going, oh, that's the China Sea. Everyone goes through there, and Mike said a third of all the shipping goes through here, this area. So I'm going, okay, if the Lord, yeah, just have to be ready. So thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm in Luke 21, verse 9. But when you hear of wars and commotions, do not be terrified, for these things must come to pass. The end will not come immediately. This is only one of many places we're told not to be terrified. And yet we tend to allow things like world news, and we have this tendency to let ourselves get agitated. But we're warned time and again not to do that. So why are we continuing to let world events and the things that we see in prophecy to stir us up in such a negative way? We ought to really look at these things and say, our Father has complete control. He has set his Son to be king. His Son is the head of the church. And we don't have to stew about what's coming on the earth. We don't have to. We don't have to let ourselves get all upset about what we see and what we don't see yet, that's yet to come. And this is what peace is, right? Because he is our peace. So when these things happen, let's say you are, as it says in Luke 21, you're called before kings and you are persecuted by the leaders and by families and by neighbors. We're not supposed to be fearful about that, but accepting of it. Accepting of, as it says in the Sermon on the Mount, rejoice and be glad in that day that you are counted worthy to suffer for his name's sake. So I know it's a conditioning. We have to condition ourselves to come into a mindset of fearlessness and trust. And look, if I perish, then I perish. It's okay. It's very difficult to come to that, but I think we need to try to come to that. Because when everyone else is stirred up and angry and raging, as Psalm 2 says, why did the nations rage against the anointed? Well, they're going to rage more against the anointed. But you, for his name's sake, you will not deny his name. So this whole thing about fear and reading through the Olivet prophecy, there's no place we can find that says, and you need to really be afraid. No, he never says that. What do you think?
I mean, you are not terrified to the point of your faith is shaken, but you would be affected one way or other. When these cosmic events take place, you would be affected, but your energies would be depleted because of the persecution. Love of many would grow cold. The agape love, the obedience to God, and reverence of God would soon disappear by your short-term friends and long-term friends in church. So everybody is deserting the truth. Now you have a real challenge. So those challenges would be there. Not so much of the cosmic events. The world would be bothered by them, but your problem would be global persecution, severe, intense, active persecution. So you are forced to go underground. When you go underground, probably there won't be food every day, or there not much comfort for you, and there is uncertainty that you have to go through. In patience, you possess your souls. For that, you should be prepared, but not terrified at any time, all through. But these would help to understand, because he's narrating step after step and sequence after sequence. And finally, when you see sun, moon, and stars, then you know that your redemption is near. Second coming and your resurrection is very close. That kind of clues he is giving. Why do you think he is giving those clues? But when you see fig tree and other trees, you know that it is very near, even at the doors. So how close you are to the second coming is dropping several hints. So would that make you less terrified? I don't know. Why do you need those clues if you're not at all affected? I'm done.
Marlene?
I'm just, yeah, I think you're right there, Tagore. There's going to be some nasty things, and you certainly would be affected if you weren't warned. If you know that it's coming, you know that, well, it's going to get played out. It's going to be an interesting ride, let's put it that way. But you know that there's the light at the end of the tunnel is not a gorilla holding a flashlight. And that's pretty important. If you consider how the Egyptians felt when the Passover was going on, and they were in their homes and they could hear the screaming people, probably a little ways away from Goshen. They certainly knew something was happening, and they knew that this was happening because of things that men had done to themselves. They brought it on to themselves. Recently, the COVID-19 deaths. That was a man-made thing. And what did we do? We came up with vaccines that killed more people. There's just, people do things to themselves that God sometimes doesn't have to do anything. He just, sits back and watches them play it out because of what they're doing to themselves. So it also tells about the martyrs that are under the altar. How long is this going to go on? When are we going to get our revenge? And God comes back and tells them that you got to wait a little bit longer because there's more martyrs that are coming. And so there's a lot of things happening, but I personally feel that a lot of the things that are going to be happening are we just do it to ourselves. It's a nature in man to, inspired by who knows who, to go about doing these things. A lot of it is to gain power by somebody. It's a real draw. You shudder to think what man can do to man. And in the end, they talk about cannibalism, right? They get so hungry that they wind up eating other people. Well, I think that's enough for now.
Alan?
This is actually Charlene. So my question is to Gore is, when you're going through Revelation, you talked about Simeon. How do we know that this isn't just Simeon and that these things are just going to be Simeon and not really happening?
This is Simeon too, Charlene. So there is one face value scripts that would run, but this is multi-layered. So when you apply Simeon, you see completely different stories. I did not address so much Simeon today. I took these things, Olivet prophecy on its surface, but we cannot completely eliminate some of the scripts on the surface, on the face value. So there is a good possibility of the cosmic events, and there is also Simeon script. Simeon actually carries out multi-layered. It's not one layer of Simeon. They actually open up multi-layers. There are bottom layers and intermediate layers, and there are top layers. So Olivet prophecy has all the layers. So the bottommost layer is no Simeon. It is just physical as it is. You can build a case for bottommost layer, and God is really teaching and warning his church at the intermediate layers, and top layers are hope. Those are more closer to heaven, God's throne, how God would look at all these things as he's orchestrating these snares and traps. That is for hope. And intermediate layers are instructions to church. The bottom layers is what you would watch, everybody would go through. The bottom layers are less Simeon, more physical on face value. So I don't know if I'm making sense. You tell me. Maybe we can discuss when we visit Tampa.
Thank you, Tagore.
You're welcome. I gave a presentation for Olivet prophecy in Waco, Texas. I just picked up one intermediate layer and went through Matthew 24. And they enjoyed. Instead of intermediate layer, I can take up a top layer. Same set of verses. You address it at top layer and intermediate layer and the bottommost layer. I kind of did mix today when disciples ask about the temple, big temple, all the goodies in the temple. They're asking, oh, how great this is, how beautiful these are, how they're adorned, these things, this carving. So they were praising. Then Christ said, like, one stone would not be left on another stone. All would be taken down. So we always took that literally in the first layer, physical layer. But that's an instruction for church and the intermediate layer. He's talking about the temple. We are temple of living God. In that temple of living God, if one stone, each of us are stones, if one stone is above another stone, that is going to be torn down by God. Have you seen that in recent history? One stone above another stone, a hierarchy in a church in Pasadena, California. One on top of other. He doesn't like it. We are all equals before God. Give a grand salute to hierarchy. We can discuss on and on. This is a mega topic. Mega topic. People have spent like 3-4 decades. And I think I count myself blessed to go through their studies for several months and years. And what I gained, I would share with you when we start this Olivet prophecy. Never ever think that it is small. It's a big mega topic, mega subject with multi-layers, multi-facets, ever unfolding. And once you learn these layers in Matthew, it would change forever. The way you read Revelation, the way you read Gospels, the way you read Isaiah, Jeremiah, everything changes. Such a huge impact that would have. I'm done.
Willard?
Yeah, I don't want to offend anybody but I think it's somewhat dangerous to poo-poo signs way that they did not get destroyed by God at the time. So I'm sure there were those that says, well, see, it didn't mean anything. The signs and prophecies given to them. I think it's very dangerous to ignore or just pass off signs, especially as just another event. It shows ignorance of either prophecy or science or both. And Tagore, you said, do you make any sense? You make a lot of sense. We should pay attention and not just pass these things off.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
But God said he would not do anything that he did not first show to his prophets.
Yeah.
So don't ignore these signs. They may not mean anything today, but when they come and go, or wait a few years, you'll see. But anyway, having said that, I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's dangerous territory to tread. And I'm going to say good night and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Willard, but this is free country. Everybody can speak.
Oh, sure. I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. But anyway, I just wanted to say my piece. So thank you.
Okay.
And good night all.
Goodbye. I'm planning to go through the verses that they are quoting for this eclipse that is going to go through United States. So the verses that they are quoting, I want to revisit them. In Genesis, God gave the stars, moon, sun for the days and seasons, months and seasons, and signs. The word sign, we have to properly understand and analyze. What do God mean by signs? Are they prophetic signs? Are they regular signs? So that verse is used to describe this eclipse that is going to come in April. So those are what verses we have to at least do some homework, either to agree with them or disagree with them. Without homework, we should not be dismissing things.
Yeah, Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 2 says, "Do not be dismayed at the signs in the heavens,
There you go.
as the heathen
Yeah.
are."
That's
The
a
heathen-
scary verse. Yeah.
Look, we're not supposed to be dismayed by those things. Things like common events like eclipses. Now, extreme events, that's different. But we're not supposed to be dismayed by the things that astrologers are dismayed by. And I think that's what it's getting at. The things the heathen are dismayed are things like astrology. Those are the signs in the heavens that
Sure.
we should not be concerned about, as if it was some kind of ominous indicator.
Sure. I have a question. Do you all believe that there was an eclipse when Christ was crucified? Because there was darkness.
Yes.
Do you think that was an eclipse, or have you read somewhere that there will be an eclipse?
I don't think it
Possibility.
looked like,
Scripture does not say there is an eclipse.
No, doesn't say that, but how else would you account for it other than if it was not an eclipse, then it was supernatural darkness.
Yeah, look at the plagues, one of the plagues of Egypt. There's 24 hours, no light. There's a pitch darkness. People-
except in Goshen, they had light.
Yes. So do you think there's an eclipse, like only some portions of Earth? They have eclipse for 24 hours, not like few hours. I know most likely eclipse, but scripture doesn't say. That's what I'm holding on to. You're free to assume certain things. After all, this is free country. I think
It seems that an eclipse wouldn't be that long. Maybe it could, but eclipse moves. I mean, you see the Earth passing in front of it, so there isn't that much time if it's just an eclipse that it's actually total darkness. And
you're right. I tend to agree with your analysis. Like the diamond ring forms, it
Mhm.
lasts only a minute or two.
right.
And then you have the crescent of sun comes out.
And what about, you talk, why can't it be a miracle? You talk, the sun stood still in the sky at one time and they were fighting the battle. Now, how can a sun stand still in the sky unless the earth was stopped? I mean, it's not the sun that's standing still, it's the earth from spinning.
Yeah, that's you cannot explain with the current knowledge of science and the laws of physics. You cannot.
I
So
know.
scientists would say it's impossible, but God would turn the laws of nature, laws of science, just to reveal to us that He is a sovereign God. He can override things. If Earth stops rotating suddenly, we will all fly off, right?
We would probably notice that.
That's our experience. Can something exist outside of our experience? That's where God is. There's one naval intelligence officer from US Navy. He was on surveillance trip on US submarine. He's standing with binoculars. He suddenly heard a huge noise and he saw a huge flying saucer kind of object came out of the ocean from water. And the water was not actually touching the surface of the vessel. There's a distance of few inches. And then this guy came out and took one rotation, and within a second, it disappeared. It went out so fast into the outer space. He just can't see that anymore. It's so rapid. And this is a witness. He's kind of Christian. His name is Bill Cooper. His name was Bill Cooper. He died. He's no more. I believe that's a true statement. And he said, our understanding of laws of physics is defied by this object.
And if the Earth stopped spinning, I don't think we'd fly off, though, Tagore. Simply because the mass of the Earth is what holds us in place and gives us gravity. But it would certainly cause other things to go wacky.
Yeah, your centrifugal force or centripetal, one of them, you have to balance out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a great day for surfing.
Talk about the waves coming off of that stop.
You have great tsunamis, right?
Yeah. Think about it as a pan of water and you just sloshed it.
Yeah. We will
Central America? What Central America?
Much of the Florida would be under ocean. We will be gone.
No, don't say that.
And you
Have to
have a
climb,
really
have
big
to find a
canal.
really, really tall palm tree and shimmy up that palm tree.
Hope you
Yeah.
can find palm tree in time.
I got a hunch the palm trees will be running.
You'd be up in one palm tree and the coconuts off the other one will be hitting you.
But the sun stood. Sun stood. It did not move. Either sun stood or earth stopped moving. We don't know how God has accomplished that. He did accomplish. So there is science beyond us. At least we should accept in faith. They're still struggling to explain the collapse of matter and black holes. How is that matter is completely compressed and consumed by this black hole? Those are outside of our knowledge of physics and matter.
I like to think of it like a true black. We put up a screen for viewing and in our theater, and around the edge, we painted that wall in the back a theater black. We picked it up in from the local paint shop, and it said, and they said this will, you cannot have any light reflect from it, and you can shine. Just get close to putting the image on the screen. You don't have to worry about it being perfect, because if it goes onto the black a little spilled over, you don't see it. You don't see it at all. It's just black.
Oh, I see.
There's no reflection of light.
Got you.
So that's kind of like the black hole. It just absorbs the light. It absorbs and light is energy. It simply takes it right in. So it's a black.
Yeah, it absorbs the other galaxies in its way.
Right.
The whole thing is compressed into one less than a grain. The whole solar system can be compressed so hard. It becomes a tiny seed, like a mustard seed. It may be less than that. The whole thing is compressed. And these mathematicians, they would write their thesis. So if for some reason you are able to enter into this black hole and see, you have series of galaxies super compressed, and you can go into the compressed world. It is a separate universe where everything is super compressed, but still you have some laws of physics exist, but it is a universe of its own. And if you explore further, perhaps you find another black hole within a black hole, and that might contain other systems that it has absorbed and compressed. So you're talking about multi-layers. You don't know where it ends. Or if you extend that math to us, probably we are also compressed, but we are still existing in the tiny space that is between our planets in solar system, but probably we could be inside of a black hole already. But outside of our black hole, there could be much uncompressed universes still exist. So these mathematicians would remove all the boundaries that we would like to have, if I am making sense. I know you shouldn't go too much into science and it becomes science fiction. But coming back to our Olivet prophecy and the snare trap, some Christian authors have published books on just that subject, snare. It comes as a snare on those who dwell on the whole face of earth. They wrote books, these big books. So this is a vetted subject in the Protestant circles, those who study Bible, of course.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of way we can understand the snare is it's irreversible. Once the snare comes upon the whole earth, you can't turn it back.
Yeah.
There's not a possibility at all. There's no option to turn it back.
Yeah.
You've gone to a place where it's irreversible. So now you're stuck and you're trapped, and you have to come to terms with what you did. There's a verse that says he will destroy those who destroy the earth. You know that verse?
Yeah.
So that's part of the snare. The people who are intent on being destroyers will be in a trap that they now will be destroyed, but you can't reverse it. It's like a point of no return. We all know that phrase. This snare, it's a point of no return. Can't undo it, right?
So they have to drink the cup of judgment that God gives them. There is no escape.
Yeah.
And also, if you're aware, you will not be snared. There's another caveat to that. People who are not aware, ignorant, if you look at the traps that they lay for birds, if bird suspects that there is a trap, it would never go near. So people who know the prophecy, who understand and who are close to God, they would not be snared. I think that's the lesson. But for majority on the whole face of the earth, it comes as a snare. Are you agreeing or?
I'd say in most cases that's true. But sometimes they don't really, sometimes they have to get tempted and might want to go try it and see if they can get away with it.
That's Russian rule, eh?
Yeah, something like that. But it's just what the bait is when you have a snare, because bait goes right along with a snare. And how tempting is the bait, I think, is the question as to whether or not something will get caught, even though they know that they might get caught.
Some things are evil, it's kind of trap, but you have no way of escaping it. The chemtrails that are there spraying in the skies, how do you escape? You have to open your windows and doors at some time. You go out and breathe them. You have no escape, even if you have knowledge. You are part of the system, the times you are living. Your air is poisoned, your foods are poisoned, your water is poisoned. You are eating and surviving on semi-poisons. On top of that, you have doctors. All the medical and pharmaceutical. We are living in apocalypse times in a way. If people from 200 years ago, if they wake up now, they would look at us and say, you are in terrible times.
So you think that we're lab rats to you?
Yeah, we are dispensable.
Yeah, I think a little bit longer, then we all get flushed.
They have these vans in US. They're fitted with X-ray machines, and they routinely pass by you and check what are the contents inside your car, inside your truck or something. Like they have several vans that law enforcement agencies use. And somebody questioned, what about citizens? You're using them when your van passes through cars and we are sitting in cars. What about us? You are subjecting us to X-rays and radiations. And the guy replied, you are dispensable. They don't care really.
Interesting.
So we are X-rayed without our knowledge when you are driving on highways.
And our cars are tracking us and recording everything we say and do.
If you have modern car, my
Yep.
car records everything and asks me repeatedly, shall I send it to insurance companies or partners? I keep on saying no, assuming that they are not actually sending. Who knows that they were being entertained by giving us a button, which doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they're just humoring you.
Yeah, you think you have power, like, oh, I will
Yeah,
control.
right. You can shut them off. Every time we get in the car, we have to go through a little ritual. So Marlene's my co-pilot, and she shuts everything down she can shut down. But you have to do it every time you start the car.
No, it's all, if you take a step back and think through, you would find out it's a trick being played on you. This National Rifles Association and the guns, you know that movement, right? Most of the conservative bent would believe in that.
Second Amendment rights.
That's a hoax. If government wants to send troops, your guns would not defend at all. They have far more sophisticated weaponry than you can defend yourself with guns. But as long as you believe that you are safe with the guns you have, they're good, they're okay, as long as you believe that. Oftentimes they will come and threaten legislation that we would take away your guns, and there will be big uproar, and they will quietly withdraw that legislation. And as long as you think that you can protect yourself with your guns, you are happy and they are happy. What are the ramifications if you come to know that you can't really defend yourself with your guns? They are like 3-year-old toys compared to the weaponry that the military has. If you come to that conclusion, then you give up your guns and you will really search for more advanced weapons. Then there will be more pressure on them to develop some more methodologies to confront you. So instead of that, what if you allow them to believe a lie? You're good, like you vehemently defend that we would not give up our guns, as if with guns you are able to defend. I know what I'm speaking is very controversial, but you take a step back and think through. That's a snare. You're locked into that thinking.
When I was in college, we were getting our EE degree, and we had an internship program. I went with the utilities. One of my friends went with Honeywell. His job was to design design a miniature laser, which was small enough so that it could be mounted in an airplane and be powered by the jet engine. And with that, again, this is the mid-1970s. They were using lasers in the jets so they could take out other jets. And I was building electric systems.
Yeah, the black budget projects, they are several generations ahead of civilians. You can't match. It's just foolish, but still people believe, and you are made to believe perhaps. And that gives us some stability and some peace. There's no more big civil war all across.
I gotta get up early, so I'm gonna bow out. So see you later. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, Don.
Good night.
Have a good night rest.
I think we are done with prophecy. We are into other issues, other